Tyler's fist caught Claire right in the jaw. Christmas morning, my dining room, and this kid I'd trained like a son just punched my daughter in front of the whole family. The sound was loud as hell, and everyone went dead silent. But what really got me wasn't just the violence. It was seeing Tyler Brennan, the guy I'd spent 8 years teaching everything about insurance fraud investigation, standing over my daughter like he owned her. My name is Perry Coleman. I'm 61 years old, and I spent 30 years as an insurance fraud investigator before I retired to what I thought would be peaceful golden years here in Portland, Oregon. I thought I'd seen every scam, every scheme, every way people try to game the system, but nothing prepared me for watching the man I'd mentored put his hands on my daughter during what should have been a joyful Christmas dinner. Let me back up. Claire is my only child, 30 years old, and works as a medical assistant at Providence Medical Center. Tyler Brennan had been like family to us for years. I'd hired him fresh out of college 8 years ago, taught him everything I knew about investigating insurance fraud. He was sharp, dedicated, asked all the right questions. The kid had potential, and I was proud to be his mentor. When I retired 3 years ago, I thought I'd done right by Tyler. He'd moved on to work as an insurance agent, and we'd stayed close. He'd been dating Claire for 2 years, and honestly, I couldn't have been happier. Here was a young man who understood the business, who I'd personally trained to have integrity and ethics. I figured if Claire was going to be with someone, at least it was someone I knew and trusted. Boy, was I wrong about that last part. The Christmas dinner had been my wife Diana's idea. She wanted the whole family together. Me and Diana, Claire and Tyler, Tyler's older brother Nathan, and his wife Holly, my sister Rita, and her husband Glenn. We'd spent the morning opening presents, drinking eggnog, watching. Tyler helped Claire with the dishes like the perfect boyfriend. But I'd started noticing things over the past few weeks. The way Claire had become quieter around Tyler, how she'd flinch slightly when he'd raise his voice, even just to call across the room, the expensive watch Tyler was wearing, a Rolex that shouldn't have been affordable on an insurance agent's salary, little things that didn't add up. We were halfway through dinner when it happened. Claire had made an innocent comment about Tyler's new Mercedes parked outside, something about how nice it was that his career was going so well. I saw Tyler's jaw clench immediately. I saw his knuckles go white around his fork. Then he stood up. "You want to talk about my success?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You who wouldn't know hard work if it bit you?" Claire looked down at her plate. "Tyler, I didn't mean anything by it." "Shut your mouth." He moved toward her chair. "I'm tired of your little comments," I started to rise from my chair, but Diana grabbed my arm. "Perry, don't make a scene." That's when Tyler grabbed Claire by her hair and yanked her to her feet. She cried out, her hands flying to her head. And then he hit her. Not a slap, a closed fist punch to her face that sent her sprawling into the wall, knocking over Diana's cherished Christmas decorations. The room went crazy. Rita screamed. Holly jumped up from her chair. Diana's hand flew to her mouth. But Nathan, Tyler's older brother, just sat there with this sick smile and said words that will stick with me forever. "About time someone taught her to respect you, brother." That's when everything clicked for me. The expensive lifestyle, the arrogant attitude, the way Nathan seemed so comfortable with violence. And I realized what Tyler had done with everything I'd taught him. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd kept for years, but hoped I'd never need again. Lance Murphy, former FBI agent, now a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. We'd worked together on a massive fraud case back in 2012, and he'd told me if I ever needed anything to call. The phone rang twice. "Lance Murphy." "Lance, it's Perry Coleman. I need you at my house. Now. Bring whoever you trust." "Perry? What's happening?" I looked at Tyler, who was now standing over Claire as she cowered against the wall, blood dripping from her lip onto her white sweater. I looked at Nathan, still sitting calmly as if nothing unusual had happened. "Domestic violence in progress. And Lance, I think there's a lot more to this. I think my former trainee has been using everything I taught him for all the wrong reasons. On my way. Keep everyone there. Don't let anyone leave." I hung up. Tyler was staring at me now, his face red with rage. "Who did you call, Perry?" "Someone who's going to have a very interesting conversation with you," I said quietly. I moved to Claire's side, helping her to Her feet. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face. "It's okay, honey. It's going to be okay." Tyler laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You think calling someone is going to change anything? This is between me and my girlfriend. This is none of your business." "Actually," I said, my voice steady despite the fury burning in my chest, "the moment you put your hands on her in my house, you made it my business. And Tyler, after everything I taught you about ethics and integrity, this makes it very much my business." Nathan finally stood up. He was bigger than Tyler, broader in the shoulders. "Mr. Coleman, I think you're overreacting. Tyler and Claire have their issues, like any couple. Sometimes things get heated." "Things get heated?" I repeated. "Is that what you call a grown man punching his girlfriend in the face?" "I call it none of your concern," Nathan said, his tone shifting from pleasant to threatening. "And I suggest you put that phone away and let us handle our family business." I looked at him more closely then. The expensive clothes, the confident way he carried himself, the casual acceptance of violence. Something clicked in my investigator's brain. "Nathan, what exactly do you do for a living?" "I own auto repair shops." "How many shops?" "3 locations around Portland." I felt pieces falling into place. Auto shops. Perfect for staging accidents. Tyler with knowledge of how insurance investigations worked. Expensive lifestyles on supposedly modest incomes. This was starting to make sense in all the wrong ways. "How long has this been going on?" I asked Claire quietly. She wouldn't look at me. "Dad, please." "How long, Claire?" 6 months, she whispered. "Maybe longer." I felt sick. 6 months. My daughter had been living in fear for 6 months, and I'd been too blind to see it clearly. Too proud of my former student to notice he'd become everything I'd spent my career fighting against. Diana had moved to Claire's other side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Rita was on her phone, probably calling 911, though I'd asked Lance to come first for a reason. If this was what I suspected, we needed someone who could see the bigger picture. Tyler was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. "This is ridiculous. Claire, tell them. Tell them you're fine. Tell them we just had a little argument." Claire said nothing. "Claire!" Tyler's voice rose. "Tell them!" "She doesn't have to tell us anything," I said. "We saw what we saw." That's when Tyler made his second mistake. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Victor, it's me. We have a problem. The old man's making noise. You need to get over here." He paused, listening. "I don't care what you're doing. Get here now." He hung up and smiled at me. "You want to make this complicated, Perry? Fine. Let's make it complicated." I had to hand it to Tyler. Even in panic mode, he was thinking like I'd taught him. Control the situation, manage the evidence, call in backup. Problem was, he was using those skills for all the wrong reasons. 25 minutes later, Lance Murphy arrived. He didn't come alone. He brought 2 associates, both former law enforcement, and a woman I recognized as a domestic violence advocate he often worked with. They entered through my front door without knocking, badges already out. Tyler's face went pale. "Who the hell are you?" "Lance Murphy, private investigator. I'm here on behalf of Perry Coleman." Lance's eyes swept the room, taking in everything. The broken decorations, Claire's swelling face, the defensive positions everyone had taken. "Anyone want to tell me what happened here?" "This is a private residence," Nathan said. "You have no authority." "Actually, I was invited by the homeowner, which gives me every right to be here." Lance turned to Claire. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" Claire looked at me, then at Tyler, then back at Lance. I saw the moment she made her decision, the moment she chose truth over fear. "He hit me," she said, her voice small but clear. "Tyler hit me." Lance nodded. "I'm going to need everyone to stay right where they are. I've got officers from Portland PD on their way." He looked at Tyler. "You put your hands on her?" Tyler's jaw clenched. "This is between me and my girlfriend." "Not anymore, it's not." Lance pulled out a small digital recorder. "Perry, you witnessed the assault?" "I did. So did everyone else in this room." Lance turned to Nathan. "And you are?" "Tyler's brother, and I'm advising him not to say another word without a lawyer present." "Smart," Lance said. "But here's the thing. I don't need him to talk. I've got multiple witnesses to assault. That's enough to bring charges." He looked at me. "But you said you thought there was more?" I nodded. Lance, I trained this kid everything about insurance fraud investigation, how to spot fake claims, how to track financial patterns, how to build airtight cases. And looking at his lifestyle, his brother's business, the way they're acting, I think Tyler's been using everything I taught him to run scams instead of stop them. Lance's eyes sharpened. He'd learned to trust my instincts over the years we'd worked together. All right, let's start simple. Tyler, what do you do for a living? I'm an insurance agent, Tyler said tightly. What company? Pacific Northwest Insurance Group. And you, Nathan? Auto repair, you said? 3 shops, Brennan Auto Service. Lance pulled out his phone and made a quiet call. I couldn't hear what he said, but I knew he was running background checks, looking into financials, pulling strings he'd cultivated over decades in law enforcement. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They separated us all, taking statements. A female officer sat with Claire, documenting her injuries, photographing the bruising that was already blooming across her cheek and jaw. Another officer talked to Tyler, who had finally shut up on Nathan's advice. Diana clung to my arm. Perry, what's happening? Justice, I said simply. Finally. But I knew this was just the beginning. As I watched Lance work, making calls, coordinating with the officers, I remembered something Tyler had said on the phone. The old man's making noise. He'd called someone named Victor. Who was that? Another piece of his operation? The answer arrived 35 minutes later. A man in an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase with the look of someone who'd done this too many times before. I'm Victor Hayes, attorney for Tyler Brennan. My client will not be making any further statements. Lance raised an eyebrow. That was fast, almost like you were on standby. Hayes didn't respond, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Yeah, this attorney had been waiting for a call. This wasn't his first time cleaning up Tyler's messes. The police arrested Tyler on assault charges. They read him his rights, cuffed him, and led him out of my house. As he passed Claire, he hissed, "You're going to regret this." One of the officers immediately added intimidation of a witness to his charges. Nathan started to leave, but Lance blocked his path. I'd stick around if I were you. I've got some questions. Am I being detained? Not yet, but the night's young. After the police left with Tyler, Lance sat down with me in my study. Diana was upstairs with Claire, helping her clean up and pack a bag. There was no way my daughter was going back to her apartment tonight. Talk to me, Perry, Lance said. What's your gut telling you? I leaned back in my chair, thinking through everything I'd observed over the past 2 years. Tyler doesn't work regular hours for an insurance agent. He's got expensive tastes. New car every year, designer clothes, but his salary shouldn't cover that lifestyle. And Nathan with those auto shops, perfect setup for staging accidents. Lance's expression darkened. What else? I taught Tyler how to investigate fraud, Lance. How to track suspicious patterns. How to spot fake injuries. How to follow the money trails. If someone wanted to run insurance scams, they'd need to know exactly how investigators think. Tyler knows all of that because I taught him. You think he's been using your training to stay ahead of investigations? I think he's been using my training to run the whole damn operation. Lance pulled out his laptop. Let me make some calls. I've got a buddy at the insurance fraud division. If these guys are dirty, there'll be whispers. While Lance worked, I went upstairs to check on Claire. I found her sitting on her childhood bed, holding her old teddy bear, looking about 12 years old instead of 30. Dad, Claire said when she saw me, I'm so sorry. I sat down on her other side. Honey, you have nothing to be sorry for. I should have told you. I should have seen what Tyler was becoming. Tell me everything, Claire, from the beginning. And she did. It spilled out like poison being drained from a wound. How Tyler had been charming at first, loving, respectful. How the first time he'd grabbed her arm too hard, he'd cried and apologized and sworn it would never happen again. How it escalated slowly. A shove, a slap, cruel words that cut deeper than any blow. He said no one would believe me, she whispered. He said he knew how investigations worked, that if I ever told anyone, he'd make sure I looked like the unstable one. And Nathan was always backing him up, telling me I was too sensitive. Did you ever see anything about Tyler's work? Anything that seemed off? Sometimes people would come to his apartment late at night, men I'd never met. They'd talk for hours in hushed voices. Tyler told me to stay in the bedroom when they came over, but once I heard them talking about someone's, accident, about how the claim went through, about splitting money. I felt sick to my stomach. What else did you hear? Someone said something about the next one, about making sure the injuries looked real, and Tyler was giving them advice about what investigators look for, about how to avoid red flags. I went back downstairs to find Lance on his fourth phone call. When he hung up, his face was serious. "Your instincts were dead on," he said. "The insurance fraud division has had their eye on a ring operating in the Portland area for the past 18 months. Staged accidents, false injury claims, billing for medical treatments that never happened. They've suspected there was an organized group behind it, but they couldn't get anyone to talk. Let me guess, Tyler Brennan's name keeps coming up? Right at the top of the list. They've been tracking a pattern of suspicious claims, all linked back to the same medical providers, the same attorneys, the same repair shops. Your boy Tyler's been coordinating the whole thing. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? North of $1.8 million over the past 18 months. Could be more." I let out a low whistle. So, when Tyler hit Claire tonight, he wasn't just an abusive boyfriend, he was a criminal protecting his operation. And I'd bet money that the reason he's kept Claire scared and isolated is because he knew if she ever felt safe enough to share what she'd seen and heard, it could bring the whole thing down. We looked at each other, and I saw the same thought in Lance's eyes that was in mine. We had a chance here. A chance to not just get Tyler on assault charges, but to dismantle whatever operation he was running, using the skills I'd taught him. "I need to make a call," Lance said. "We're going to need the FBI on this." Over the next 4 hours, my house became an unofficial command center. FBI agents arrived, followed by insurance fraud investigators, followed by the district attorney's office. They interviewed Claire gently, then with growing excitement as she recounted every detail about those late-night meetings, about Tyler's expensive lifestyle, about the conversations she'd overheard. They interviewed me about my observations of Tyler's lifestyle. They interviewed Diana about the times Claire had shown up with injuries. They even interviewed Rita, who remembered Tyler making a joke once about knowing how to work the system. By midnight, they had enough for warrants, not just for Tyler's arrest on assault charges, but for a full investigation into insurance fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. They raided Tyler's apartment and Nathan's auto shops, seizing computers, files, financial records. They brought Nathan in for questioning. Without Tyler there to intimidate him, Nathan's wife Holly started talking. She'd been scared too, she said. Scared of what Nathan and Tyler were involved in, scared of what would happen if she said anything. The next day, the investigation exploded. They found evidence of at least 40 fraudulent insurance claims totaling over $2.3 million. They found a network of corrupt doctors who signed off on fake injuries. They found attorneys who filed claims knowing they were false. And at the center of it all was Tyler Brennan, using everything I'd taught him about investigating fraud to run the perfect scam. But here's what really got to me. What made this case go from big to personal. Tyler hadn't just been defrauding insurance companies. He'd been recruiting desperate people to stage real accidents, paying them a fraction while keeping most of the money. And in at least one case, a staged accident had gone wrong. A man named Carl Rodriguez was permanently disabled when a supposed fender bender became a real crash. When they told me that, I had to sit down. I'd trained Tyler. I'd taught him everything he'd used to hurt innocent people. The weight of that responsibility hit me. Hard. The trial took 7 months to prepare. Tyler and Nathan were held without bail, deemed flight risks. Their attorney, Victor Hayes, was also arrested after investigators discovered he'd been laundering money through fake legal settlements. During those 7 months, Claire moved back in with me and Diana. She started therapy. She joined a support group for domestic violence survivors. Slowly, painfully, she began to heal. And I watched her grow stronger with each passing day. When the trial started, Claire testified for 5 hours over 2 days. She told them everything. About the abuse, about the fear, about the meetings and conversations, about Tyler's threats and Nathan's enablement. About the night at Christmas dinner when her father had made one phone call that changed everything. Tyler's defense attorney tried to rattle her, suggesting she was making things up out of spite, that she was a scorned girlfriend seeking revenge. But Claire didn't break. She looked that attorney right in the eye and said, "I have the medical records from every time he hit me. I have the photographs my therapist helped me take of bruises I'd hidden for months. I have the testimony of my family who witnessed the violence. And I have the recordings of those meetings I overheard. The only thing I want is justice for everyone Tyler hurt, including me. I testified too, about training Tyler, about teaching him the ins and outs of fraud investigation, about how he'd used that knowledge to stay one step ahead of investigators, about how he'd betrayed not just my trust, but everything I'd tried to teach him about integrity. The prosecution laid out their case methodically, financial records showing the flow of money, wiretapped phone calls from the investigation, testimony from the recruited accident victims, medical evidence from the people who'd been hurt. And through it all, Tyler sat there with that same calculating look I'd seen in my dining room. The jury deliberated. For less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Tyler Brennan was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for insurance fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering, plus 8 years on state charges for assault and domestic violence. Nathan got 15 years, Victor Hayes got 12 years. The other members of their operation received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years. The civil suits came next. The insurance companies sued to recover their losses. The victims sued for damages. Tyler and Nathan lost everything. Their houses, their cars, their assets, all of it was seized and sold to pay restitution. A year after that Christmas dinner, Claire and I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. She'd started a new job as a victim advocate at the district attorney's office, helping other domestic violence survivors navigate the legal system. She'd found purpose in her pain. "Dad," she said quietly, "do you ever regret training Tyler? Do you blame yourself for what he became?" I thought about that for a long moment. "Honey, I taught Tyler how to fight fraud, not how to commit it. I taught him ethics and integrity. He chose to ignore those lessons and use the technical knowledge for evil. That's on him, not me." But still, no buts, Claire. A teacher isn't responsible when a student chooses to use knowledge for harm. I'm responsible for stopping him once I found out. And we did that. She leaned against my shoulder. "Thank you for making that phone call. Thank you for believing me. I should have seen the signs sooner. You saw them when it mattered most. You acted when I needed you to." The sun was going down, painting the sky orange. Somewhere in a federal prison, Tyler Brennan was living with the consequences of his choices. Somewhere in the city, Carl Rodriguez was learning to walk again, with the help of the settlement money recovered from Tyler's operation. And here on my back porch, my daughter was free, healing, helping others find their strength. "You know what the weirdest part is?" Claire said. "I got a letter yesterday from one of the women Tyler and Nathan recruited for their scam. She thanked me for testifying. She said because of that, she got the courage to report the people who had manipulated her into staging an accident. She's getting her life back too." That's wonderful. It is. And it made me realize something. That Christmas dinner when everything fell apart, that was the beginning of a lot of people getting their lives back. Not just me, all the victims, all the people who were too scared to speak up before. One phone call started all of that. I thought about Lance Morrison, who'd responded without question to my call for help, about the FBI agents who'd worked the case tirelessly, about the prosecutor who'd fought for justice, about Diana and Rita and Glenn and everyone who'd stood by Claire when she needed it most. "It wasn't just one phone call," I said. "It was everyone who answered it, everyone who believed you, everyone who refused to let Tyler and Nathan get away with what they'd done." Claire nodded. "Still, you made the call? That took guts." I squeezed her shoulder. "You want to know the truth? I wasn't thinking about guts. I was thinking about my little girl, the one who used to sit on my shoulders at the park, who trusted me to keep her safe. And I'd let her down by not seeing what was happening sooner, but I wasn't going to let her down again. Not that night, not ever." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Claire said, "I've been thinking about starting a support group at work for families of abuse victims. Because it's not just the person being hurt who suffers. Everyone who loves them suffers too." That sounds like a great idea. I want to call it the Perry Coleman Support Group. I felt my eyes well up. "Honey, you don't need to do that." "Yes, I do, because you showed me something that night. You showed me that it's never too late to do the right thing, that experience and wisdom matter, that sometimes the people who love us have to be brave for us when we can't be brave for ourselves." She was right about that. Looking back on that Christmas dinner, I realized that everything I'd learned in 30 years of investigating fraud had prepared me for that moment. Not just the technical knowledge, but the instinct to look deeper when something didn't feel right. The patience to build a case methodically. The understanding that justice takes time, but it's worth the wait. "There's something else," Claire said. "I've been talking to some other victim advocates, and they're amazed by how quickly the whole operation got shut down. Usually these cases take years to build, but we had everything wrapped up in months." "That's because Tyler made a mistake," I said. "He got arrogant. He thought because I was retired, because I was just some old guy, I wouldn't be a threat. But he forgot that I knew his methods because I'd taught them to him, and I still had connections in law enforcement. More than that, though, he thought he could intimidate our family into silence. He didn't count on us fighting back." She was right. Tyler had made the classic criminal mistake. He'd underestimated his opposition. He'd seen an older man and thought I'd be easy to intimidate or dismiss. He'd seen a scared girlfriend and thought she'd never find the courage to speak up. He'd forgotten that families protect each other and that sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous when you threaten what they love. "I keep thinking about something you said that night," Claire continued, "about Tyler using everything you taught him for evil. Do you think that happens a lot? People taking good knowledge and corrupting it?" "Unfortunately, yes. But that doesn't mean we stop teaching. That doesn't mean we stop sharing what we know. It just means we have to be more careful about who we trust with that knowledge. And it means we have to be ready to stop them when they go wrong." "Exactly." The last light was fading from the sky. Soon Diana would call us in for dinner, and we'd sit around the table as a family again. Safe, together, stronger than we'd been before. I'm Perry Coleman. I'm 61 years old. That Christmas dinner, when I watched my former student hit my daughter and his brother smile, I made a choice. I chose action over silence. I chose my daughter's safety over keeping the peace. I chose justice over loyalty to someone who'd betrayed everything I'd taught him, and I'd make that same choice again in a heartbeat. Because that's what fathers do. That's what decent people do. When you see evil, when you see someone hurting someone you love, you don't turn away. You don't make excuses. You act. The truth is, we're all responsible for the world we create through our choices. When good people stay silent, evil thrives. But when we stand up, when we use our experience and knowledge to fight back, that's how real change happens.